Ever wonder what the top podcasting minds are saying about growth and content and cash flow in 2024? Well, I'm here in Washington, D.C., where Podcast Movement 2024 just wrapped up. And let me tell you, the insights that I've gathered on podcast growth and content strategy and monetization are too good to keep to myself. So stick around, because what I'm going to share could be the catalyst that your podcast needs to reach new heights. Hello and welcome to another episode of Legit Podcast Pro. I'm your host, Gordon Firemark, the podcast lawyer, and today we're diving into the top takeaways from Podcast Movement 2024. I should say my top takeaways. Everybody gets a different experience, and if you're looking to grow your podcast and refine your content strategy or discover new ways to monetize, you are in the right place. I'll be sharing some key insights from some of the sessions I attended, and I hope you'll stick around. You won't want to miss it. First off, I don't. When I go to these conferences, I always have a wonderful time. I don't generally attend a ton of the sessions. I tend to think that the real value of the conference is in the hallways and in the bars and sitting and meeting with other creators and other business owners in the space, and I always get a lot of value from that. It's always great to see friends and colleagues and make new connections as well, and this one was no exception. But first off, let me just talk about the conference itself. Podcast Movement is in its, 11th or 12th year or something like that, and this one was a terrific conference here in Washington, D.C. at the Gaylord Convention Center, actually in National Harbor across the river in Oxon Hill, Maryland, to be really technical. But it's a nice venue. I generally don't like the Gaylords for these kinds of things because their business model is to be an all-in-one location that you never leave. And they tend to be sort of situated in remote or they just make it a little challenging to get out and sample the local flavor. But this one is not that way. There were lots of restaurants and other places within walking distance of the venue, and I found that to be a plus. And the hotel and the facilities there are very, very nice, so that's a definite plus. The conference center, like most, is it's pay as you go. It's very sparse. Everything that you want to do with the venue, you pay extra for. And the organizers this time around decided, I guess, not to put down carpet in the convention space. So a concrete floor with a large crowd makes for a noisy environment. That is not surprising. They also did something with the venue where the stages for the various talks were situated right in the same room with the expo. And, it has its ups and downs. It has its pluses and pros and cons. I don't care for that model very much. I would rather that the meeting room, the conference rooms, the sessions were held on stages in separate rooms so the doors could close and you could have a little quiet. Otherwise, it's very, very noisy. What they did do, and this worked pretty well, is they had these, and I wish I could remember the name of the company that makes it. I think it's Silence or something, but they had these headphones that were tuned to the particular stage that you were watching. And so you could experience the sound of the stage without as much background noise and distraction. And overall, I think everybody, managed it pretty well. As a speaker on stage, it was a little off-putting to have to deal with and speak over the background noise. They have a microphone, of course, but it's an extra friction point, I guess you would say. That said, everything went well. I enjoyed my talk, and I think the audience got a lot out of that as well, and I enjoyed the others that I attended. So let me tell you a little bit about some of the sessions I attended. Actually, most of these takeaways are coming from the keynotes on the first couple of days. First off, the opening keynote of the show was it was an interview with Stephen Bartlett. Stephen Bartlett is a podcast creator Show is called Diary of a CEO, and it was a very, very informative, insightful, and thoughtful discussion. Stephen advocates thinking of your podcast in broader terms, that it is really a media production just as much as a television series would be, or a feature film or something like that. And his goal is that his show should be on every screen in the world. And when you set your sights high like that, you can achieve an amazing thing. And he has done just that. I don't know if he's on every screen in the world, but certainly a lot. And that is a very effective thing. He advocates using video clips as what he described as a front door to your show. So short form video, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook YouTube Shorts, Facebook Reels, those kinds of things, as a way to introduce audiences to your show, not a means to the end of having them watch and experience the whole show that way. So he does shoot video, but I think a lot of it is chopped up into teaser snippets and things like that then drive traffic to your show. And I think that's a great strategy, something that I'll be implementing a bit more with mine. He says that, and he's right, success in the space is retention. If your show not just attracts folks to it, but actually keeps them engaged during the whole program, the whole segment or session or episode, that is how you succeed. It's not just about getting them to start listening, but you want them to listen to the whole episode. And I think that's very true, especially with an advertiser sponsor supported show. If they're not hearing the sponsor's message, the sponsors aren't going to see a return on investment. So, yes, there's the pre-roll ad and the mid-roll, but you sell that inventory on the post-roll as well. And this was something I didn't quite understand, and I'm going to investigate a little more, but he looks at a lot of data. And among the data points that he was talking about was actually the CO2 levels in the room, or in the audience. And I guess they do test audiences, sort of like the Magoos, the old dial of response things that the film and television industry used to do. But he says that the studies show that the higher the CO2 level gets in the room, the less well the show is performing, that attention is flagging, audiences are feeling tired, and maybe just because they're yawning when they're a little bored, and that's causing increases, minute incremental increases in CO2 levels, which is kind of interesting. So he says the data drives the decision making. He says you remove guessing from the equation and test everything, experiment with everything, and there you go. He says, pursue your own curiosity, that the best way to be a good interviewer, if you're doing interviews, is to choose topics that you're genuinely interested in, choose guests that you're genuinely interested in, and stay with the stuff that you care about. Let's see. To win at any game in life, he says, you must be consistent. So you have to really like it in order to be consistent and to perform at the highest levels. He says, remember to fill the content gaps. You want to choose topics and guests for which there's a high search volume. So, and search volume that isn't being answered by everyone and everything. So that's good. He says you want to also elevate the visuals because you want to stop the scroll. I think that's a very important point, and something I'm going to be working on. Obviously, these talking heads don't exactly stop the scroll unless the thumbnail is great. So focus some energy on making good thumbnails and using video. I'll say also that overall the conference had a lot of emphasis on video, and YouTube is now well entrenched in the space, and by some numbers, some statistics are showing that YouTube is actually at the top of the podcast consumption tools. So that's pretty interesting. Elevate the visual, stop the scroll. Oh, this is marginal gains. He talks about a 1% increase in any statistic consistently applied adds up to an awful lot very, very quickly. I think that's very true. That's progress, not to mention if you watch those minute details and you look at that incremental growth and success and improvement, it feels good and it keeps you motivated and consistent with doing what you're doing. He says, be more petty than the competition. Sweat the small stuff, I guess is what he's saying. Do what most people won't do, and that's what will set you apart and lead to success. Sweat the details. Fail more often, because failure is feedback. Feedback is good. Feedback drives better decision making, and you want to establish that as a culture. The sweating the details and experimenting and being willing to fail and all of that. I think that's a really remarkable thing. So, yeah. As far as revenue driving, monetization, he says, just ask brands to take a bet on you. And even when you're not big audience, even when you're not commanding tremendous top dollar, it's okay to ask for brands to, come in and become a sponsor, become a backer, sponsor a whole season so they get enough impressions to see a return on their investment, that kind of thing. Word of mouth growth is important, so you really need to win at format by innovation. That being different enough but not off-putting is really a formula worth pursuing. So Stephen's talk was really good. It was this actually is a good example. Also, always leave them wanting more. It was over too soon. I wanted to hear more from him, and I think he had more to say, but they kept it short and kept us interested and left us wanting more. So that's great. Then on Wednesday, Tom Webster from Sounds Profitable took the stage for his keynote, in which he was presenting a summary, really, of results of what he described as a big honkin' study. He said that big honkin' is a definite quantifiable measurement, and that is something to take note of. There's 5,071 respondents in his survey, and in the survey, I should say, and that's about 5 times larger than anybody has done in the past. So that's pretty significant. He said that podcast consumption, 94% of people are familiar with the term podcast. 53% of the sample have consumed at least one podcast in the last month. And that is about stable with where it's been over the course of the last year or so. And he said that people are spending more time listening than before. That's increased incrementally, and that's a plus. And he says that podcasting, what's interesting about podcasting is it's a companion medium. And he takes the view that audio is important and that audio-first podcasting is and should remain a thing. I agree with him. I am doing video, but it's audio first, with video as a side dish here. And in a future episode, I will talk about why I've chosen to do video format the way I do for this show, Legit Podcast Pro. It's pretty interesting. Anyway, people spending more time listening. It's a companion medium. It's something people do while they're doing other things. They take it with them and do those other things. So, what else? He mentioned that discovery of podcasts is still largely from recommenders, friends and family. And that's true. And that's actually one of the reasons that I use video, is that I think that YouTube is a remarkably good recommendation engine. And if it leads to some discovery, then that's great. So Jody, by the way, in the comments is talking. I think you're talking about Tom's book. It is remarkable. Yes. And and Jody is an audio first person, of course, because that's her whole thing. Her brand is built around audio. I agree. But I think that YouTube is a strong algorithmic recommender, and that's why I've chosen to be on audio, on video as well, because I want. And honestly, my numbers show that more people are tuning into the YouTube in the first week or so after I release an episode than are listening to than are subscribed, I guess, to the podcast. So I'm hoping to change that, but there we are. So Tom made a very strong point that we should all be selling the benefits of podcasting, and that the big names in podcasting aren't supporting the medium as a whole the way he would like to see. The big ones should be showing up more and promoting the medium as a medium, in addition to or beyond just their own shows. And I definitely buy that. YouTube is the number one discovery tool after that recommendation for friends and family. So that's why I've embraced video. I think that's why we all have to. But I liked combining that with what Stephen was saying about using the short form as the doorway, the front door to the content. I think that's a really interesting strategy that can be applied. But we need to be selling the benefits of audio, the take it with you while you vacuum the floor, or while you're on a drive, or while you're working out at the gym, those kinds of things. That is a tremendous advantage that podcasting has, and I'm really happy with that. I did my own talk yesterday afternoon, and my subject was about video and some of the legal issues. It was called Lights, Cameras, Lawyers, and it was about the legal issues that come up in video that you might not think about if you have been mainly in the audio space. And I'll be doing a recap of my presentation in next week's episode of Legit Podcast Pro. So I won't get into it too much here, but I had some good feedback and some good questions after the session, and I'm feeling pretty upbeat about that, so that's great. And then today, I didn't attend the morning keynote. It just didn't capture my imagination. But I did attend one of the last sessions of the day today. Kira Deneen talking about advertising and sponsorship, and even with a smaller niche show, she is able to command higher than average CPM rates. And she talked about why and how she's able to do that. And she said that, first of all, podcasting is a more efficient advertising medium because of its narrowness of focus. You're narrowcasting to people who are intensely interested in your subject matter, and that's terrific. She, looked at some somewhat year or two old numbers and pointed out that, whereas in other media there are millions and millions and millions of programs, in podcasting there are a few 100,000. So it's a better bet. And if you're getting that niche audience, you can provide some very effective messaging for sponsors. She says podcast ads do better than other media because it feels like we sort of know the host. You have a stronger connection with the podcast host. It's a more intimate medium. They're in your ears, right? They're in your head. So when you hear that advertising message, it's grounded in that intimacy, and it allows us to have a more, she described it as a parasocial relationship. And it's a long-term relationship. Folks listen long-term. They listen, it's a subscription thing, so you have that intense interest. But also, hey, if they like what you're doing, they'll go back and listen to back catalog. They're not going back and reading yesterday's newspaper, but they'll go back and listen to your back catalog. So advertising in podcasts can have a long tail as well. She talks about using tracking codes to identify and track the return on investment for your sponsors and so on. And really emphasizing the point that the riches are in the niches. And then she went into how to go about finding sponsors. And she really has a much more proactive approach to that. She really starts with, just, she pointed out, I guess, 5 approaches. The direct sort of cold email to a subscriber, not a subscriber, a sponsor that feels like a good fit for your show. She likes that, and she says it's very effective when she's done her legwork and research, and I think that makes a lot of sense. She says go to conferences and find out who's attending, who's renting a booth at the conference, and pitch them on your show. Pitch those that are advertising on shows that are competitive with yours. Hey, I see you're advertising on so-and-so show. My show reaches a similar audience in a similar way. Here's how we are different. Here's how we are better. Take a chance on us and come on board as a sponsor for our show. And then who is email? Oh, if you subscribe to newsletters in your field, those folks that are running that are sending out newsletters, the brands that are reaching out to you, those are really good prospects as well. She says that the process is what you'd expect from a sales process. Identify the prospect, search LinkedIn, identify who is the marketing team at those prospective sponsors, and establish a relationship with them, and not just wham bam hit them with a pitch right away, but actually try to ask some probing questions. What's important? How can I help you? Look for how you can be a solution to their problem, or provide help with something that they are struggling with, and then make your offer. She advocates strongly having a good media kit, and she had a pretty good example of her media kit available for us to look at, and that was nice. And then she talks about bundling, that the ad offer should be more than merely, let me put a 30-second spot in my podcast in a pre-roll ad, and then that's it. She talked about making it a package, including an ad, maybe an interview with someone from the brand as an introduction to the brand, using socials, doing giveaways from the brand. They let the advertiser give away some of their product or some of their collateral material as a way of teasing and getting folks interested, but also include them in a newsletter as well, and in banner ads on the website and things like that. So it's really a bundled campaign with lots of touch points, rather than just the ad that goes by in 30 seconds and then never gets heard again. I think that's very powerful, very powerful. Hi, Benita. Nice to have you here. Yeah. So Kira, I have to be candid. Kira is a client and a friend of mine, so that's part of why I attended her session. But I got a lot out of it, and kudos to you, Kira, if you're seeing or hearing this. It was a terrific session, and it was encouraging to realize and know that even if you don't have giant numbers in the multiple tens of thousands of downloads per episode, it is possible to think outside the box in how we package and sell the advertising opportunity. And if you have a really good, tight fit with a particular brand, they will pay for access to your audience. And that's important. This is me talking now. Let's always remember that what we do as creators of content is we're making the bait that attracts the audience, that we are then selling the audience or the audience's attention to our sponsors. And even if you're self-sponsoring because you've got a product or service that you sell, it's useful to think about this as the business model. Let's remember that our content is not our product. Our audience's attention is the product. And if you're selling your own stuff, then you are your customer as well. You're attracting their attention so you can convey your message of about your products to them, that kind of thing. And if you're sponsored, then you're selling earballs, as I like to say. So that's it. So hey, listen, thank you to everybody who's been here: Tommy, Jody, Anna, um, and uh, uh, and Bonita. It's been great um, talking to you today. I'm still in the hotel in Washington, so I'm going to go out and find some dinner and call it a day. And this is an interesting episode. So for those of you that are listening to the audio version, I know I'm interacting with my commenters a little bit. I don't usually do that on this show, but bear with me. We'll be back next week when I will be doing a recap, or not a recap, um, what's the word I'm looking for? I'll be presenting the topic that I presented at the conference as well. So, thanks for being here. I'll be back again next week on Thursday at 4 p.m. Pacific. Have a great day.